clown, that you're superior. That's not true. As Dr. Martin Luther King said, it's the content of your character that's the key. But the reality of it is that there are certain things that should be taught in our classroom, whether it be astronomy, whether it be botany, zoology, whether it be astronomy, or whatever area that we want to study, math included. It's very important that we use a magic eye, that we look at things from our own perspective, and right now we are not. You cannot teach biology class without understanding the role that melanin plays. It's very important to understand the role that melanin plays, even from the point of the zygote. The zygote is the fertilized egg, where mother's womb and father's sperm or spermatozoa have come together, and at this one divine moment in history, two essences become one, which becomes the zygote. The zygote then is in three areas. There's the endoderm, a mesoderm, and an ectoderm. Because we're talking about melanin, the area that I want to talk about is the ectoderm, which is the outer layer. This is where the brain comes from. This is where a number of the different organs and glands come from. This is where the epidermis, which is the part of the skin that is very important. And if I can just go to one of the charts. And by the way, this chart that we use is a chart that we use in our classroom.
No, so all of the material that you have here pretty much is what you use as an instructor in your classroom?
Exactly.
Okay.
As a biology teacher, I use this material, and as we go through it, you'll see it. The key is this. We are not using a magic eye. And we're teaching our children biology, astronomy, and plant life, botany, without it being related to each other. For instance, like this. You cannot even begin to deal with organic life. Organic life means the living life on Earth, without understanding the role that the sun plays on Earth. For instance, the only job that the sun really has all day and all night is to unite, to fuse hydrogen atoms. The sun, in fusing 4 hydrogen atoms, creates 1 helium atom. This concept then brings down to Earth the light and heat energy to make a summary of this process. The key is that when every atom has a weight. Now, by the way, I don't mean to get heavy, and I'm hoping that I'm not losing nobody when I'm saying this, but if by chance I am losing someone, then I think it's very important to understand what your biology teachers did not teach you in class. What I'm saying now, every adult out of high school should know this. Should know this. This is not heavy stuff.
What is the percentage that you would guesstimate that do know it?
It's hard to say. And then to even say those that know it but don't know it within the context of what they need to know it is even more devastating.
In other words, in terms of how, you mean how to utilize it?
How to utilize it, but also to understand the role of the sun. Every young person in school upon graduation from high school should have a strong understanding of the role that the sun plays in the solar system. You know, it's like wanting to know your family tree and leaving your grandparents out. You're not going to know your family tree without your grandparents. You cannot understand why you're on Earth if you don't understand that the role that the sun plays in terms of what is known as photovoltaics, which is the electricity that comes from light, or photosynthesis, synthesis meaning bringing together, photo being light, what the sun brings together in light, which is the chlorophyllian life of the plant.
Well, most people don't know, I think, right now, and there's been polls that have been done who the vice president of America is.
Exactly.
So I think it might be a stretch.
Exactly.
In terms of what you're talking about.
It is. It very much is.
Which is unfortunate.
It is, because this is something that every one of our children should know. But because we learn it outside of itself, we learn astronomy here, we learn chemistry here, we learn biology here, but what we don't know is that all of the sciences combined bring forward an understanding of the role that melanin plays.
Well, let's definitely get into some of that.
Okay, so now when you go from hydrogen to helium then fuses itself, and then that becomes carbon. That which is assimilated on Earth that brings forward life is considered organic life. Now, here's the problem when you go to a health food restaurant and you say that you want something organically grown. Well, the fact that anything that is grown is organic. The question you really should ask in a health food store, were pesticides put on it? But whether you get lettuce from a major supermarket or whether you get lettuce from a health food store, they're both organic.
Sure.
But because something says organically grown, people say, well, that must be something different. But organic life is what can be assimilated by the atom known as carbon, which is an organizing molecule in our universe. Carbon is not just found on Earth. Carbon is found all over the universe. In fact, it is what the universe is made of. It is the black stuff. It's the black stuff that very few people want to look at in terms of the development. So, in fact, melanin is not just on Earth, but it is also in the universe, and this is something that we need to know. When we look at melanin, and this power comes down on Earth, light and heat energy comes down. What occurs is that atoms are brought together of carbon, which then create melanin molecules. Melanin molecules are then contained in something known as melanosomes. Melanosomes then create the melanocyte, which is the melanin cell. Again, this should be common knowledge by this point for everyone in high school. So when we look at, for instance, here's a chart that we can look at.
Particularly the fact that you have, probably 80% of the classrooms in the inner city, at least, are people who are part of that spectrum.
Absolutely. And they really don't have a fundamental understanding of what it is that makes them who they are. Our musicians don't understand the role that melanin plays in their inner ear. Our basketball players don't understand the role that melanin plays in terms of allowing them to be able to jump up in the air and do what they want to do, whether it be baseball, football, or whatever sport. Our dancers, our double dots, our young sisters doing double dots don't understand the role that melanin plays that allows them. But if our young people understood, and if we as a community understood the role of melanin and learned how to control it, if we understood that you can center yourself around proper music and your melanin charge can increase, that you can associate with the proper kind of friends and people around you and your melanin count can increase, that you can go out into the sun and under a proper day without going overexposed, that you can derive energy from the sun. If we knew this when we were stressed out, there were things that we would be able to do in our meditation sessions if we understood the role that melanin plays. So this melanin is not just to be known and say, oh man, that's heavy, so I know this. It is to understand that there are times when you can actually activate your melanin, that you can actually raise yourself to a higher level. In fact, when someone meditates, the role that they're really attempting to do is they're trying to move from the level of a physical concept of peace and moving on to a spiritual level. And in that transition, it is the well-melanated individuals that make the best transition across. And so these are things that we have to know as a community. Here in the skin, here in the skin, this is the epidermis. And again, we teach this to our young people. This is the epidermis and this is the dermis. The skin is broken up into two parts. When you come up into this area here, this is the epidermis, and this is where the great majority of melanin is. It acts as a guard. In plants, it's called stomata, which are like the guard cells that will, if the sun is blaring down and too much sun goes through, these guard cells will close up and won't let any more sunlight come in because of the damage that will occur to the plant. This is how brilliant nature is. In the human body, the same thing is true, and the skin acts as a window and as a wall. A window to allow that which is necessary to come through, but a wall to stop it if no more is needed. So at the point in time when you're on a beach, and if your immune system is in place, and if you're a well-melanated person and you're at peace with yourself, your body can control. Melanin can kick in, almost like an automatic pilot, that even you don't know. I mean, you're not telling your skin, stop the sun from coming in. Melanin itself can act as the agent that will close up and will not allow any more of the damaging rays to enter your system.
Question. So what is sunburn?
Sunburn is when too much comes through and it's overexposed. Too much sunlight has come through, the inability for your skin to be able to control the amount to come in, but at the same time your body is acting as a wonderful protector because it knows that if it does allow it to come in, it will damage your neuromelanin. Neuromelanin is the melanin that is formed in the organs and glands and muscles and skeletal systems of the internal part of your body. So actually, nature is loving us no matter if we're aware of it or not. And this is another blessing. Melanin is an automatic pilot. It can control things whether you realize it or not. Now, I'd like to just enlarge this piece here because with children, I like them to see something even larger. We're going to come back to this when we get to the eye and the ear, but here is a larger version. This is a small version. This is a large version of the skin, and here is the epidermis up here. As you can see, the people who developed this did not have people of color in mind, because obviously it's pink. So you can see that where even the makers of these kinds of things are, their mind is not in understanding the fundamentals, because if I were of European descent, and I was aware of melanin, I would get as much as I possibly could. I would sit at the feet of black men and women who knew better than I to learn how I was going to survive for the next thousands of years. Because if people of European descent do not come to understand what's happening out here with the ozone layer, the role that the sun plays, and it's getting to the point now where people are liking to take their clothes off more and more, and they like to stay out of their clothes more and more. In fact, they're trying to get laws to be passed so they can be naked. Now, what they have to understand is that in their nakedness, in the sun, they are exposing themselves to far more damage through ultraviolet A, B, and C than what they realize. So before anyone starts getting angry at the things that we say, I strongly recommend that they look very closely at this, because if they don't know this, they're going to be in very serious trouble within the next 500 to 1,000 years. In fact, I would dare say that by the next even millennia, in other words, by the year 4000 A.D., the people of European descent and light complexion people across the globe don't get hip to melanin and the role that it plays, they will not be here by the year 4000.
Well, I know that there's a tremendous amount of research going on right now in trying to understand, not only understand it, but actually trying to simulate it such that it can be produced artificially.
Exactly. Cannot be done.
I know also I was on the internet the other day looking at this question, melanin. I was mentioning to you earlier in terms of just dropping it in just to see what's out there. And it was an interesting site that was there talking about how it was identifying certain areas that had significant ozone depletion. And there was one site that was talking about an area over Chile where there's a tremendous amount of rays that are coming into that particular area, and how you have a correlation in terms of the rise of people coming down with melanoma, skin cancer, in that particular area. Australia also was another area, because you have a lot of Europeans there.
Exactly.
So I think it's interesting, but when you hear about all these things going on, and I suppose those who are in the know, in the scientific community, that is why they're busying themselves trying to figure out how to develop this artificial melanin such that I guess they can protect themselves and those in their sphere of influence.
Exactly. And you know, we spoke about a book the last time by Dr. T.K. Moore, brilliant doctor, and a student of melanin from Morehouse College in Atlanta. And you see, the key about melanin is melanin is a byproduct. It is a blue-black, like if you were to extract it, like the work that Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop was doing in terms of extracting melanin from the mummies to clearly show that these were African people. It's like a blue-black inky substance that's drawn from the body. It is a byproduct. It is important in terms of capturing light and heat energy. But the real fundamental greatness of melanin is in the human's ability to process it and create it, because it is in the processing of melanin, the creation of melanin, that the activity of life goes on. So once you have created it, it becomes something that draws energy from the sun. It then disperses it through the human body to the areas that is needed. So let's say you have like a weak liver, or you have a weak kidney, or you have a weak part of your body. Melanin at its highest functioning rate acts almost like an agent. In combination with the brain and in combination with the oxygen that is then going into the blood, what occurs is that the body then says, send it to the liver, send it to the pancreas, send it to the stomach, send it in order to create a stronger immune system. A high melanated individual that is processing it at its highest level is an individual that can cure himself, herself, from the various diseases. In fact, many folk of African descent on plantations cured themselves without ever going to the doctor, and in fact never knew they were sick. Because melanin is such that you could get something that might become a lump that would lead to cancer, that your body will disintegrate on its own.
Now, I was always curious about the illness called depression, right? And how one of the things that seemingly aided the individual or made it worse was a day without sun.
Yes.
And conversely, getting them out into the sun.
Exactly.
How it just had, and with us too, I mean, you can see it in people.
Sure.
When we break the winter and go into the summer, it's like you go through a metamorphosis of sort, and people change, all literally before your eyes.
Sure.
You know, so that's a question that I always wondered in terms of the scientific explanation for why and how that occurs, you know, to bring about that change in people.
Exactly. And, you know, we are approaching something in terms of our seasons now. It's October, and we're heading towards the area, you know, it's getting darker earlier. There are more hours of darkness. It will become, there is disease that comes along. Well, they don't call it disease, but it's called SAD, S-A-D. It's called seasonal affective disorder. People start getting depressed now. They start getting down in the dumps. Why? Because in darkness, melatonin is kicking in. In the lighttime, serotonin starts to kick in. Melatonin is the cause. And again, you see all of this selling of melatonin. And I'm here, and I've told everyone that has listened to me, and even now I have heard that there is, for instance, women who go through premenstrual syndrome now. They are now suggesting that you take serotonin. And I've been prophesizing and forecasting from when they started pushing this melatonin thing. Serotonin was around the corner. Why? Because it's like uppers and downers. People who take uppers need downers to go to bed. People who take downers need uppers to wake up. The same is true. When you overdose on melanin or melatonin like people are doing now, which is a hormone secreted out of the pineal gland at nighttime, for you to offset that now, you're going to have to start taking heavier doses of serotonin in order to make up, because melatonin at nighttime, while it is the cause of your night dreams and your nightmares, and also your ancestral guidance, towards the beginning of dawn, melatonin then gives way for the pathway of the hormone to change into serotonin, and then the sunlight then begins to kick in, so during the day you create the serotonin. When people, for instance, the reason why they take melatonin is because they say sleeping, it helps them sleep, it slows down the aging process, and it increases the ability of reproduction. Now, black folk never had any problem in any of those three areas. We don't have any problem there now. Even though we have been beset by just about every painful situation, there are certain situations that we don't have problems with. Brothers and sisters have no problem going to sleep. Their youthful vigor is there up until they're 80 or 90 years old. Makes no difference if they work hard on the plantation or if they have a cush job up in the mansion. And, of course, reproduction. They have no problem reproducing themselves. And that is because of the role that melanin plays in the human body. And we release the melatonin in floods. So I encourage folk of color, unless you have certain problems, you don't need melatonin. It's like overdosing.
I want to, you mentioned three areas, one of which you said the ancestral memory.
Exactly.
If you could just touch on that a little bit, because
Okay.
I remember some time ago listening to a lecture by the physicist Hunter Adams.
Hunter Haviland, yes,
Yes.
yes.
And
Sure.
he was talking about the ancestral memory pool.
Exactly.
The fact that, and this is something that I'm not quite clear on.
Okay.
To summarize essentially what I got from that is that the things that occur during the night, that which we call dreams, quite often are experiences of ancestors trying to communicate with you. And as he called one of them Big Mama.
Mm-hmm.
He said that Big Mama is trying to tell you about something that you might be experiencing or is about to experience. But one of the problems there is the fact that that communicative process that was natural when you were a part of the African experience, but now coming into another reality and pretty much being forced to adapt different thought processes, different cultural values and behavior, a lot of that have been broken. And when you look at how the European relates to that relationship as far as ancestors is concerned, it's pretty much one of stay away, fear. You have the Halloweens and all these things to placate, as that mythology evolved with that culture, to placate the dead, to keep them away from interfering in their lives, which seems to be the reverse with the African, not just the African, but I think much of the world.
Sure.
Indigenous people seem to relate to their ancestors. I don't know if you can speak a little bit to that.
Well, one thing is, clearly there is a relationship. When we look at DNA, DNA is deoxynucleic acid. And DNA is said to be like the precursor. It is like that which creates everything. It is that piece that makes you who you are. That individual. It's like your fingerprint in life.
The essence of essence.
It's the essence of essence. Now, many scholars say that melanin is what organized DNA. But the key that I want to get to is like this. The acorn is a baby oak tree. Just like DNA has the potential of being everything that is around you. Every ancestor that you have is in that one speck of DNA. Everything about every piece of thought that your ancestors had from the very beginning of time, before there was any other kind of people, is in you. There is no reason why, if you have billions upon billions upon billions of these atoms that make up molecules that make you up, there's no reason why every one of those ancestors should not be walking and talking inside of you right now. It is only natural that that should be. As an African people, we were well aware of these kinds of things, and we did not allow people who did not know to interfere with what we understood. Everyone has their own spiritual piece, but what African folk do not know here in America and have not really related to, and I'm not speaking about all, but I'm saying that they have turned away from their ancestors. And it's like if I was going to try to get into somebody's house and I knocked at somebody's door, and they wouldn't answer the door, eventually I'm going to go knock on someone's door that is going to receive my information and receive me well. That's what our ancestors are doing. They are knocking at our door of consciousness, and they're asking us to open up our eyes, to look at the situation for what it really is and to take action on it. It can go everywhere from actually showing you pictures, which I have seen. I have experienced these kinds of experiences from my ancestors, and I open myself up to an ancestral line, and I don't care what anybody says about my relationship with my ancestors. To this day, they have brought me well. And it is the ability to draw on these kinds of things and the physical piece that brings all this together, that opens your mind up, that opens your pineal gland up, is the melanin. That's the key piece.
Again, I want you to clarify something for me, because you made a statement as far as the essence is concerned, that everything, every part of the ancestral line manifests in you.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of talking about essence, when you start talking about the atoms and the carbon and the neutron and all of those things that make us up, that also manifest, but also manifest in the universe.
Absolutely. As above, so below.
Okay, so in a sense then, you can rescue me. In a sense, all of us are the same age.
Absolutely.
We're as old then as the universe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, when I ask people how old they are, and they say, I'm so-and-so, no. You were born in the waters of Nun when Nun became to be.
Because this wasn't just made for Gero.
That's right. And
what constitutes me now didn't just pop up because I popped up. It was here before me.
Absolutely. And at some physical point in time, your parents came together, and in the divine unity, your daddy's spermatozoa met with your mother's egg. And of all of the millions upon millions of spermatozoa that could have fertilized those select, and of all of the eggs that could have left your mother's body at the particular time going through the fallopian tube to be fertilized by your dad's egg, you were chosen. That's a divine plan. So every one of our children, as I teach them, has a divine reason to be on this earth. So we got to stop cutting the food. Because you're going against a natural plan that the Kemites called Ma'at, the truth and balance. And so that as everything materializes itself in matter, it also has its spiritual side. And for us to be so naive to believe that we are 44 or we are 30 is ridiculous. Not just that, we are not just earthbound. We are cosmic bound. So therefore, when you have Dogon, you Bambada, you have the Khoi of South Africa, you have a universal theme around Africa that says that you are not just of this planet. That this planet itself is a moving satellite throughout space. And that our solar system is revolving around something very special. And that is revolving around something very special. And so that melanin becomes a very important, not just earthbound molecule, but it's a cosmic kind of molecule. And this is what our ancestors were aware of. This consciousness built pyramids. It built temples. It devised the first writing system. It put sacred principles into place that kept civilizations going for thousands of years. We as an African people now are waking up out of a nightmare. And our melanin is kicking in now, so that after all this has been going on, we have a brother, Yero Bandele, and a group of conscious African folk in the International Kibulan Society, who one day you were tapped by your ancestors and said, let's get on melanin. Now, melanin, by the way, is a Greek word. Of course, everything Greek I suspect to be Kemetic anyway. But let's just deal with the fact that they will say that the word melanin comes from melano. Melano meaning black. See, this is what we meant last time when we talked about the word Moor. Moor means black. So for anyone to start talking about Moors other than what is black is ridiculous. No more than melanin is a black substance. And it is found not just throughout the body, it is found throughout nature, it is found throughout the universe.
Okay, now you mentioned that everyone has melanin.
Everyone has a melanin. Yes.
In the dermis state, the internal state.
Well, they have them in every place that people have melanin. Every human being has melanin.
Okay. Now, in terms of the exterior, how it manifests in the color spectrum.
That's the key now.
What is the spectrum? Does every one of the Homo sapien family manifest melanin externally?
Well, okay, now we got to break that up in terms of what happened, because it's important to remember that the African family left the confines of the equatorial belt. Upon leaving this hot climate, they then traveled into areas that had less temperature. As we look at our brothers and sisters from India, what you'll notice is that while they are close to the equatorial belt, they still are far away, so therefore an impact would occur on the texture of their hair, in that being in the equatorial belt, it is very important for you to have a very strong covering around your head. Therefore, your hair becomes elliptic in nature, very curly, sometimes called kinky. Kinky is an African word, meaning that when the dangerous rays of the sun come down on your head, being elliptical, what happens is that the harmful rays get caught up in the ellipses and the turns, and they are in fact rerouted and sent back up into the cosmos. As we moved away, the need to have that protective covering began to disappear. In fact, not only did we needed the hot sun more than ever before. Therefore, what occurred was that the hair began to develop an oily substance, and then hence came forward a straighter texture hair, which is why you see Indian people, very, very dark complexion, in every sense of the word, just as our brothers and sisters in Australia look African to the T, except they have different texture hair. And that is because of the role that climate plays on hair, because it developed an oil to support the hair system, which made it straight. When you then look at the nose, in a very hot climate, your nose would become very wide in order to draw in the life-giving oxygen. Therefore, you have a very wide nose. There's also a scientific principle that says that heat expands and cold contracts. This is the first time I've had my rings on, because in the summertime I know that my hands are going to swell.
Yeah, your feet and you get
exactly
bigger.
And your body in general, in the heat, swells, because the melanin then being impacted by the sun, why, it's getting all good to itself, so it begins to expand and flex itself out. As it gets colder, things begin to contract. Therefore, I knew I could put my rings on today because it's been cold outside. Therefore, my rings will fit. So therefore, you have thick lips, wide nose, dark complexion, all of the traits that African folk have, you have because of the relationship of the sun to this organic life. As we moved away from the climate and we got into cold ice air, 2,000 degrees below zero, absolutely freezing, and the sun never shone sometimes. Sometimes people lived and died, never saw the sun because of cloud covering. This was devastating during the Ice Age, during the Wormian Ice Age, approximately 100,000 years ago. Therefore, a wide nose, to protect the organism, to protect itself, a wide nose becomes aquiline, and it grows hair, so that it will begin to filter out some of the cold that would ordinarily go up into their nose and literally freeze their entire respiratory system. So therefore, this organism begins to change itself. But I want to return back to your question. Plants were born to be green because of a green pigment known as chlorophyll. The chloroplast is the pigment cell. Humans were born to be black or brown. And melanin is the molecule and the melanocyte is the cell. Europeans were never meant to be born on Earth. They were never meant to be here, no more than an albino plant was meant to be on Earth. I took my daughters to a place down on 8th Street where they had a lot of snakes and lizards, and every place you saw a white frog, it was an albino frog. Where you saw a white snake, it was an albino snake. You see a peacock without color, it's an albino peacock. You see a cockroach that's white, it's an albino cockroach. Each one of them is absent of melanin. Each one of them is absent of the organic organizer that creates a healthy life. And in fact, each one of those organisms is destined to die earlier than its archetype of what it was meant to be, the black python, or the green plant, or the green frog, or the multicolored peacock. Every one of the ones that is a mutation of the original piece is more prone to be recessive. Even a white gorilla is called albino gorilla, and she gives birth to black gorilla because nature knows it's bound. She is a mutation. The European is a mutation of the African. And every degree of complexion between that dark complexion, melanated African, is in fact a movement away from nature's plan. Now, whether we're talking about superiority or inferiority, I don't have nothing to do with that. Because I've known some dark complexioned folks that I don't particularly care about. So I want to be clear on this, because this is the first thing people want to jump into, because
Sure.
the way in which this society was built, in order to love its European self, it had to repudiate its African self. African folk are now coming around, and I am saying, for me to love my African self, I do not have to dislike your European self. It doesn't exist that way. And had I felt that way, I don't think my ancestors would have let you in Africa or in America in the first place. So we understood the parameters of what makes someone superior or inferior is not the content, is not the color of your complexion, it's the content of your character. It is how far along the road of ma'at and truth and justice that you are. And this information that we're sharing is information that should be brought into all of the different pieces. For instance, we were talking about the role that melanin plays. If I can just show a piece in terms of the eye. This is the human eye. And this is a different part. This is the pupil. You have the iris. You have the sclera, the eyeball itself. But along this piece here, there is something known as the retina. The retina creates what is known as retinal melanin. And this, in fact, is what creates the sight in the eye. It is what allows it to capture and to bring into the eye itself the ability to see what is before it. It is the retinal melanin that gets the process of seeing together. This is why people who are albinos have eyes that have no color at all sometimes. It is because of the absence of the retinal melanin, along with melanin in the other parts of the eye, because it's all over, but it is the retinal melanin that in terms of eyesight we should be very concerned about. When you have the ear, there are three parts of the ear. There's the outer ear, there's the meso ear, or the middle ear, which is comprised of the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. And that is that, you know, and I don't really want to talk to our young people because I know that they love these earphones. In fact, a lot of us tune off the world by putting these earphones on, but if you can imagine what it is like to have this hammer just constantly banging up against the anvil that then goes into the stirrup, and the stirrup is like, you know, one of those pieces where you're looking for water and you tap it, you know, like a tuning fork, I should say. It's like a tuning fork that goes like this. Well, what occurs is that from the stirrup into the inner ear, which a very important part is known as the cochlea, it then sends messages in that then in the inner ear then send the neuron or the nerve impulses that then send the message of what you're hearing to your brain. There are little hairs that are inside of this cochlea that are resting like a marsh, like a marsh is in water. Melanin is at the ground level of this hair, and it's these hairs that are vibrating, and it is the melanin in the hairs that's really differentiating what it is that you're listening to. So sometimes people listen to things and they're not hearing really what's out there. Mm-hmm. The same way if you're rich in melanin and you hear voices, the same thing, we're going back to the ancestral line. particularly when you're asleep and you bring yourself down to different levels of sleep, you can actually, if you were in control of what you understood, you could prepare yourself. Our ancestors used to put certain oils into their bodies. They used to, when I say into their bodies, I mean to coat, to coat their ears and to coat their bodies to become better receptors to the kinds of energies that they were seeking. And they had different kinds of oils, sweet-smelling oils, and sometimes they were bitter, because it's really what you're after that's most important. But in the ear itself, it's very important to know that the important part, like we say retinal melanin is very important to understand in terms of eyesight. It is the inner ear melanin that's very important to understand. Now, we spoke earlier about the zygote. We spoke earlier about the importance of understanding what the outer, the ectoderm was about in that zygote. Well, this is where melanin in the early forms of humanity is formed, is in the ectoderm of this zygote. So that from the very beginning of birth, you start to develop the process of developing melanin on a certain level that is so very important that it becomes the mothership, as a brilliant brother out in California, Malachi Andrews, called melanin the mothership. It is the organizer of everything and all that exists. So we have it in the eye, the ear, and the skin. Without it, you wouldn't be able to see. Another piece to look at very important is in terms of the nervous system. Nervous system is like a transportation system. You have the central nervous system, which is comprised of the brain and the spinal cord. You have what is known as the peripheral nervous system, which is then all of the nerve fibers. The afferent neuron is what carries the impulses towards the nerve center. You know, like when you touch something hot. In fact, when you touch something hot, you go by something that's totally different. Impulse makes you draw back. Even before your brain gets the message, your spinal cord has told you to take your hand off that heat. Your brain doesn't tell you. It's not until the spinal cord then sends that message up that you just touched a hot stove that the brain says hot stove. But you immediately draw back. It's a reaction that's automatic. And again, melanin has a great deal to do with how quickly your afferent neuron. And then you have the efferent. Afferent is with an A. It carries impulses towards your nerve center. Your efferent is what carries the impulses away from your nerve system. Without melanin in these particular areas, you're going to have problems differentiating what's going on. Therefore, you've seen some people who can put their hand on something hot and leave it there for a while.
My mother.
Okay, well now that's an example. Chances are your nerve pulses have been impacted so that your nerve is slow. It's still going to burn you. But the reality is that your nerve impulses are a little bit slow and is not going to send the message as quickly as it possibly can.
What role does actually experience play in that process? Because a child who had never experienced, say, touching something hot,
yes,
will touch it,
yes,
and even though it's burning them, they will
yes,
leave their hand there,
yes,
right?
yes.
An adult who knows this now, knows if you touch something hot,
yes,
there's a relationship there.
Sure.
I guess it would kick in.
But also, I would dare say that if a child leaves their hand there, you need to look very closely at the child. Because chances are there is a deep-seated understanding that that hand should be pulled back. But there's a concept, you got to pull that back. You got to move away from something that is an
I'm saying
energy
they will
unlike.
eventually do it.
Yes.
But it
But
quite
they
often
should do it
won't
quite
be
early
as
also.
fast as, say, an adult.
Oh, well, then that has to do with speed. That also has to do with their control over their nervous system and how developed their nervous system is at that particular point in time. A well-developed nervous system will immediately make you pull back from that which is unpleasant to you.
So the actual experience, you don't think have a major role in that?
I think you can identify what's going on quicker as you get older, but I do think that there is a natural impulse to pull away. I do believe that, and I think that that is something, again, going back into the ancestral line. You know, just like humans have a fear of falling. No matter how old you are, you have a fear of falling. Children who may fall will be crying before they hit the ground because of that concept. That is something that is deep-seated. And many times as children of color, because of our melanated state, there are things that we jump ahead in terms of our motor skills for that we are well aware of. So again, the nervous system is a very important place to understand and develop. Again, this is where you could teach melanin in terms of the 31 pairs of spinal nerves and the role that melanin plays. It is important to understand the role that melanin plays in the nervous system. Without that understanding, we will be in very serious trouble in terms of the development of our biology. And the reason why we're doing to our bodies what we're doing. If you taught a child about their body, they would not take drugs unless they were suicidal. And then if they were suicidal, then they need help on whole nother level. But children who understand drugs who understand what it does to the body, who understands that you could get that same kind of euphoric feeling if you just knew how to tap into your melanin. Because as as Professor Barnes teaches us, Carol Barnes teaches us, that melanin in itself binds, and it is almost artificial. Melanin is a real piece. It is, in terms of the neuromelanin, it is dopamine. In the brain, in the skin, it's dopaquinone. In the internal part of the body, what's important about melanin is that it becomes dopamine, and this is where we get the word dope from. Because dope is what calms you, it is supposedly anyway, and it chills you out, okay? It makes you nod out. It puts you in another world. Well, the same is true with melanin. Melanin also has that ability, particularly when you're in a meditative state. And that if our community understood how they could meditate and get to the same level that a heroin needle could, or that cocaine or crack would, then they would leave all that other stuff alone and go to the real deal, because that's real and it's very cheap. And you can get to it quicker if you know how to tap into the resource. But again, we've got to start talking to our ancestors.
Yeah, we're fast running out of time.
How much time we have?
I think we got about 12 minutes or so.
Okay, well, we'll still kind of stay.
Okay.
Here's the circulatory system, the blood system, all of the important parts of the body, the heart, the aorta, the spleen, the liver, those parts of the body that beats the heart. You know, what's so very important is that we teach this kind of backwards, and people will challenge me and I challenge them. But the reality of the heart is the heart doesn't beat the blood beats the heart. You don't die when your heart stops, you die when your blood stops going through your body. And that's the key to understand, because it is what blood is what brings the oxygen to the different parts of the body, and that is key in terms of the development of melanin in the body, is the oxygenation. And this is why health and nutrition is so very important. No matter what they say about all these other things that we're eating, when you look at the early forms of humanity, their teeth were not structured to eat meat. So therefore they could not have been meat eaters. Otherwise they would not have been able to have teeth that were meant to be vegetable and fruit. And even our teeth today is not meant to be eating meat. It's meant to eat vegetable and fruit. People don't like to hear that, but these are realities that we have to face. Melanin in the body, in terms of pumping the blood going through the system is the living system of the process of melanin oxygenating the parts of the body and bringing oxygen to the parts of the body to keep it healthy. The circulatory system is a very important place in terms of just looking at. So as you go through, and we have a number of other pieces here also. We talked about the circulatory system, we talked about the nervous system, we talked about the eye, ear, and skin, but for our children, I think that just as important is the digestive system, the muscular system, the respiratory system, the skeletal system, smell and taste.
So you go through all of this in your class?
All of it. Children eat this up. And I approach it culturally, but I'm teaching biology. So all these concepts that I hear people talking about a feel-good curriculum, all of these things that we're talking about, ethnic cheating, has nothing to do with it. That's just the argument that they put forward to confuse the community. I'm saying that we must look at the world with our own magic eye. We have to look deeper into the superficial picture that they've given us and look deeper into the reality that what makes our bodies run is melanin's process of becoming. Now, along with these charts, what we also have brought with us is that we have videotapes now. People say, well, where do you get this? We would look at something like this, called the human body. It's 14 minutes long, and it covers all of the different parts of the system, starting with the integumentary. Integumentary is the skin, your hair, and your sweat and fat glands, sebaceous glands. That means everything that is on the outside is called the integumentary system. And then it goes through all of the other systems that we spoke about here. 14 minutes, short, sweet, and to the point. Good to introduce concepts of biology in, infusing the concepts of melanin, and then we get deeper into it by taking each of those systems that maybe was spent maybe 1 or 2 minutes on, and we look at something called What's Inside Your Body, Part 1.
What is there an age that you're dealing with this in terms
well,
of
you
students?
can, this piece here and these pieces here, I would say, is really any age at all, because it's a nice little skit for children to look at. These are children's tapes. These are not adult tapes. These are children's tapes. And this is the key to why I am here, because we many times speak on a collegial level. We speak on a college level. We speak on a lecture form. But you can't lecture to children. You can't go into a kindergarten class and lecture. They don't want to hear that. You've got to keep them occupied. I was going to bring an apron that I have. I have an apron made of Velcro that has different parts of the organs and glands, like my stomach would be here, and I can just take, you know, take it right off, you know, it sounds like Velcro, and take it off and give it to someone in the classroom and say, here's my stomach. And then I can teach them about...
So it becomes like an interactive experience.
Exactly. Then I put the apron on them. And then they will take parts of the body. They even have the kidneys on the back, you know? And then that creates the children to do things. But the reason why I'm here is to let the community, let the International Archival Society, let Melanin Chronicles understand. I'm talking about our children. And there are ways, everything that we need to teach our children about themselves is not going to have the word African before it and after it. That in fact, the very curriculum that we teach our children is a viable curriculum. Our children must know science. They must master English. They must understand mathematics, but not at the expense of their culture. Every culture has their geniuses. The cure for AIDS may come in the Spanish spoken in Puerto Rico. It doesn't have to come in English. And I think that if we suffocate our children who are Spanish-speaking children and we make them study English at the expense of their culture, I think that we may have some brilliant scholars that will have their personhood muffled out. So there are things that I believe the system is most important for. Everything that we teach our children has to be learned. They must learn algebra, they must learn geometry, they must learn trigonometry, but they have to understand it from their own perspective. I've also brought, along with these videos, what I've also done is, here's a very nice book. We were talking about the sight, touch, all these kind of things. This is a nice book that deals with senses. It's a bilingual book in English and Spanish that really, for our children who are challenged even, who may not want to speak, like myself, who grew up with a speech impediment, you don't necessarily have to talk. They have symbols. An eye for sight, a finger for touch, a nose for smell, a tongue for taste, and an ear for hearing. So you go through and you say, what do you think you would do? What sense would you use for this? Get them understanding their senses. This is a book that we use in classroom. This is kindergarten, first grade. Then what we do is we have a whole series of books on the different senses. We have the sense of taste, the sense of sight, the sense of smell, the sense of touch, and the sense of hearing. And in all of these books, children's books, and I don't see a lot of African children here, but it's the concept that you're teaching. As long as the melanin piece is in there, children can deal. They don't have a problem sometimes without, although I want them to see themselves as much as possible. But if the book doesn't offer that, we still can get deeper into it by teaching them the different things about their senses. So this is another piece that we can get into. And then, of course, we have other kinds of books, such as these, that teach about astronomy and about the solar system and the role that the sun plays, along with cards. Here's cards on the human body that we teach our children about. This is for, like, maybe, I would say, the primary grades. This more is for an older grade group, basically dealing with the human body, teaching all these things that we have here. After I've taught them about melanin, taught them about the parts of the body, now we have activities. And then finally, here's the one on plants, because you cannot understand melanin if you cannot understand chlorophyll. So here we have the plant piece here that begins to develop understandings of chlorophyll life. And this, if I may just wrap all this up in terms of looking at it, Asar, a major character in the Usurian drama, is seen in two stages. He is seen either green or he is seen black. Wherever you see Asar, who is a major character in the story of life, he is either green or he is black. And the reason why is because he is not just a nectar of the vegetarian life, or I should say the vegetable life, which is the chlorophyll stage, which is green. He's also seen as black in terms of the melanic experience. And if you want something written in primary source, go to something known as the Aten text, written by a pharaoh during the 18th dynasty. His name was Akhenaten, where he gives credit to melanin and the sun for being the organizer of life.
We're out of time once again, brother. We have to come back. Again, this is Yero Bandelli. We've run out of time, but we're going to have him back again to do another segment on this. We're going to ask you to stay tuned with us next week. We'll see you once again. As we always say, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Peace.
Okay.